Hey everyone, I'm Coach Chippys and I've been a professional top laner or head coach for the past 8 years. During this time, I've reached Worlds and MSI multiple times. Now, I'm a full-time coach with a ton of passion towards helping players unlock their potential and climb to their dream rank. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be teaching you a way to play out your lane that will either guarantee advantage or at the very least create a very stable early game. Now, something unique about this way of laning is that you don't need to have insane mechanics or a good understanding of trading patterns or anything like that. All you need to have is an understanding of how to do this first sequence and execute on it. And by the end of this video, you should have just that and you'll be able to apply it to your solo queue games. So if that sounds good to you, let's get started. Now specifically, the way of playing out your lane I'm going to teach today is proxying between the towers. Now there is a lot that goes into that. You need to know when you can do it, and you need to know when it's good and when it's bad. And you also need to know the advantages you can gain from doing it. And I'll cover all those topics in this video, but for now, we're starting with this example of, I'm in a recent solo queue game where I'm versus Shyvana, who's playing quite scared, not allowing me to trade that much and staying high HP. So I choose to play for plates and tempo instead. Now, the best way to play for that is to proc demolish every time you crash a cannon wave or a big wave, and then you need to proxy the wave between the towers. Now, it looks easy, right? It looks like I just bashed the tower and I'm hitting the wave and basing, which it kind of is, but there's a lot that goes into this. I needed to know what way the jungler is pathing up, where he started, and in this game, I know he started topside and pathed down because he got a leash, but I also know that even if he started red in this game particularly, I don't care because he has Graves and he's got a Shyvana top. If he was to path up and try to gank me between the towers, the chance he kills me is extremely low. I can block all their autos, I can flash over the wall and make it really hard for him. And even if he does kill me, I've cleared the wave. And also, he's spent all that time chasing me. He's not farming. Shyvana's losing minions under tower. It's actually a net benefit for me overall. However, it's very likely versus Grave Shyvana I won't die at all, and he won't even try to gank me. So, for the most part, you need to know where the jungler is going before you decide to do this, and then not just it's not as simple as, all right, he's pathing up, I won't do it. He's pathing down, I will do it. You need to think about the kill threat they have on you, and if you're able to do it, regardless of what way he's pathing. Now, from this point in the game, I've gained an item advantage. I've got all my HP in pots, and he's basically unable to do anything due to the way I played out my first sequence. And because of that, he knows if I were to ever trade onto him, he'd be at threat of dying. So he's just respecting as much as he can. To his credit, he's not letting me trade onto him. But that doesn't mean I can't gain an advantage. I'm going to be doing the same thing again, where I'm going to be stacking the biggest wave I can. Ideally with cannon, but 2 waves without cannon is fine. Stacking the biggest wave I can, and playing for plates and tempo yet again. So this is what I do here. I stack the wave. And as it comes in, even though it's not 5 minutes yet and tower damage is still reduced, I can still break a plate here because he's scared of getting dived from this big stack wave and my item advantage. And I proxy again, and I even ward up the enemy jungle. And I'm able to see anything the enemy jungle is doing. If he dashes this wall and tries to hit me, I'll live. I can ward jump. But I actually decide to chase him out of his jungle because I've got backup coming. Even if I didn't have backup coming, I'd still chase him out. But you can see the power of this strategy because I'm winning my lane, breaking plates, getting an advantage, and ruining the jungler's game. And my teammates see this, they see the pressure I'm creating, and they all rotate up and were able to double kill them. Basically in the game just from the way I played out my early lane. Now, if I were to just have stayed in my lane after crashing the third wave and try to poke him under tower and keep him pushed, there's no way the advantage I would have gained in that scenario would be bigger than what just happened on your screen. Because I was able to make the wave bounce back by proxying, get my free base and hold TP, and item advantage, and then stack a wave again, it led to this outcome where we're able to dive them, we're able to chase a jungler out, and we have so many options based purely on the way I played out my lane. Now for my next example, I wanted to touch on this game because it shows an example of what I like to call defensive proxying, where Ben is in a matchup where it's hard losing, he's versus Ignite Rumble. However, even though the matchup is losing, he wins level 1, which means he can get push of the wave 1 to 3, and he actually starts proxying between the towers versus this really hard matchup. And now he's able to base, walk back to lane, hold his TP, so that when he takes bad trades in the future versus hard matchup, he can base and TP back with full HP, gain his item advantage, so these trades aren't as bad as they could be. And also, he is not interacting with this Rumble for the next minute, minute and a half, because Rumble's going to have to base eventually to match this base. Jax is not even in the lane right now. When he was proxying, he wasn't in the lane. He's just not taking any trades at all, and he's really getting himself through this early game as smoothly as he can, based purely from knowing when he can proxy and when he can't. And I like to call this defensive proxying because if he was to stay in his lane, he would probably get smoked by this Ignite Rumble, but because he knows how to proxy, he was able to avoid the majority of this punishing lane phase. Now for my last example, I wanted to show a scenario that I feel like may happen in a lot of your games, depending on what elo bracket you're in, where I'm proxying against this guy and he has no idea what to do about it. What he should do is clear this wave, clear the next wave, base and run back to lane so that he doesn't lose his TP. He's got equal or greater items than me, and the lane state is even for him. But because he doesn't know what I'm doing, he's chasing me down the lane, trying to solo kill me, stopping my base, and he may think what he's done is good, trading flashes, stopping my recall. But during this whole time, he has lost so much XP and gold that I've still got my wave in. The wave is still going to come towards me, and now I've got an XP and gold advantage. All because he didn't know how to deal with my proxying. He thought trying to kill me, trying to stop my base was good. But instead, now his lane stay is extremely bad for him. I can freeze this wave. If he goes near me, I'll kill him. If he bases and TP's back, I've still got my freeze where I can force trades or force jungle gank. And he's got no flash, so very high chance he dies to it. And in this game, he does end up dying to it. But even if my jungler didn't come, I'd be forcing good trades with the wave outside my tower. And my lane state's extremely good for me just because I knew how to proxy and he didn't know how to play against it. Now that we've gone through some examples, let's start to really nail down the conditions for proxying. And the first condition is playing a champion that can clear the wave before the next wave comes. Now what I mean by this is I'll give an example. Let's say you're playing Camille. Now Camille, in her kit, she has such little wave clear that you're actually unable to clear the wave before the next wave comes. You try to proxy wave 4 between the towers, wave 5 is going to show up before you're even done. And if you were to base as wave 5 is walking past you, if the enemy hard pushes, you're going to lose golden XP to tower and you're going to be unable to freeze the wave because it's already crashed your tower. Now, I'll put a tier list on the screen to help you out with what champions can pull this strategy off. And something you might notice is the champions in S tier are all very dominant in pro play. And that's not just because they can proxy, obviously they're extremely strong champions in other ways as well. But it's really a testament to how strong they are, because if these champions can get pushed in the majority of their matchups and proxy, that's why they're picked in pro play a lot, because they're winning most of their matchups and they're very useful. And something that might surprise you is a champion like Singe being lower, where for the most part, proxy Singe was the only champ that would proxy in the past. And the reason he is lower than the other two champions, or the other three, is because he cannot get pushed 1 to 3 in the majority of his matchups, which means he's unable to actually get to that spot between the towers to proxy in the first place. And for the most part, Singe mains, they'll be proxying after level 6, which is still really good. He's still a good champ to proxy, that's why he's on the list, but he can't do it in a lot of matchups early, which makes him lower on the list than the other champs. Now, condition 2 is enemy jungler is pathing down, or you can 1v2 and survive him. Now, in the first example I showed, I was with Shyvana and Graves, which meant even if Graves pathed up, there's a very good chance I survive on Jax, as I can block all their damage and jump walls. But even if they were to kill me, and I got the wave anyway, they would take so long to kill me while Shyvana's missing XP and gold and Graves is not farming, that it's worth it in the end. So I don't want you to only focus on, alright, he's pathing down, I can do it, he's pathing up, I can't. I want you to think about the threat the two champions have on you, and then decide if you can do it or not. And the final condition for proxying is you get pushed in your matchup the first 3 waves. Now, the reason only the first 3 waves matter is because we can check back on the bin example we just went through, where Rumble from wave 4 onwards can actually start getting pushed in that matchup and really punish the Jax and really just bully the matchup overall. However, Bin chose to proxy wave 4. During that time, there's no PvP, he's not near the Rumble. Base, walk back to lane, still avoiding contact with the Rumble. And now eventually, because Jax is based and got back to lane with his item advantage, Rumble is going to have to base in the future too and get his items. Which during that time, Jax can either get another base or he can farm freely. Or it really just alleviates a lot of pressure on the lane and keeps it very stable in an otherwise counter matchup. Something I want you guys to avoid is tunneling on doing the proxy every single game, because there's going to be games where you pull it off and it feels so good, you're going to be tempted to do it as much as you can. But there are some big downsides to it that I want you guys to avoid, and we'll go through them now. The first one being, you are avoiding the lane. Now, a good example of when it's bad to proxy, because of this example, is versus Kayle. For Kayle, She just wants to farm till level 6 and not see an enemy champion in an ideal world, and you proxying away 4 it gives her a big time period where she's not seeing anyone and not being traded on. However, if you were to stay in that lane and look to pressure her, poke around the tower, there's a good chance your jungler can look to dive her with you on wave 4, wave 6, and really make her farming experience a lot harder than if you were to just proxy. For the next downside, it matters more and more the higher rank you go, but it's still important across all skill brackets, is the fact that proxying removes options for your jungler. Now, what I mean by that is if you were to proxy wave 4 and base, it's going to be around 315 in the game, where top crab spawns at 330, and if your jungler's pathing up, that means he either wants to gank top, gank mid from top side, invade the enemy top jungler, or get top crab. Now, if you're to be in base, he can't invade, he can't gank for you, even getting crab is difficult for him. So you remove a lot of options for your jungler from basing at this timer. That it's definitely something you need to think about before you choose to proxy or not. And the final downside of proxying is it limits the amount of items you can buy on your first base. Now, in this example, I have perfect CS, 25 out of 25, didn't miss a single one. However, I can't buy my Sheen, and if I was Renekton, I can't buy Pickaxe, Cassante, can't buy Barmies, so on and so forth. Now, that doesn't mean proxying's bad, because keep in mind, you're getting back to lane before them with an item advantage regardless. I still have a longsword that he doesn't have. It just means that if he was to base in TP and buy a bigger item, the trading might be less beneficial for me than if I were to stay in lane and buy a stronger item myself. Okay guys, we're going to wrap it up here, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to let me know. But other than that, I really hope to see you guys apply this concept and start to dominate in your solo queue games. Alright, see ya.